A few weeks ago, I made a video on branded Chimera, and I had a lot of fun making that video. But after I made it, I still had a few things I wanted to test when it came to Chimera. The two things I wanted to test is if hand traps were good in the deck or if I should just run all gas, no brakes. And the other thing I needed to test is if the Fret for Patchwork engine was good in this deck. Edgemp Chain is a fiend after all, and having more ways to fusion summon in your deck focused entirely on that mechanic just sounds like a good idea to me. So this video is focused entirely on that, testing hand traps and the Patchwork engine. I'll be posting a follow-up video to the one where I test a list with no hand traps, so make sure to subscribe. And a deck profile for the list I use in this video will be up on Monday. With all of that out of the way, let's see how I did. Round 1, I'm up against Tobias. In my last video, my round 1 was a 45-minute game 1. And this time, thankfully, game 1 wasn't 45 minutes. However, it was 40 minutes. It's actually really insane that this happened the 2 times I've played Chimera for a video like this, but I did end up taking game 1. The grind game this deck has is crazy if I'm being fully honest, and yes, we did go into time in game 2. Tobias had started off with Wanted game 2, but an Ash slowed him down to the point where we both had nothing we could do but just kind of normal summon guys, try to beat into each other, and pass. In the one turn I actually drew into a playable card, he had Summon Limit to stop me from doing anything crazy. And right as I was about to out Summon Limit, time was called.
Yugioh players, that's time 200
by 200. That's a draw still, though. Unfortunate.
This means the match was a draw, but it was a great match and I'm happy to have played it. Good games to Tobias. Round 2, I'm up against C-Dubs on Sprite. I won the die roll and went first, setting up a board of Rinbrum, Chimera, Chimera Fusion, and Mirror Sword Knight, with Chimera ripping his Called By out of his hand in the end phase. In his draw phase, I use Sword Knight to summon up Baphomet, which searches me Gazelle and Chimera Fusion. C-Dubs starts his turn with Nimble Beaver, which triggers to summon out Angler. He then summons out a Sprite Jet, but I negate its effect with Mirror Sword Knight. He links off his Angler and Jet for Dark, but when he uses Dark's effect, I chain Rinbrum. Unfortunately, C-Dubs had Super Poly. Whenever I use Super Poly, it's based in cool, but whenever my opponent has it, it's actually really cringe and should be banned. He makes Mudragon with Dark and Rinbrum, and I just return the Mudragon since Rinbrum still resolves. On resolution, C-Dubs summons out a copy of Carrot and links his 2 monsters off for Sprint, triggering its effect. I decide this is probably my best time to make Chimera, so I chain Chimera Fusion, using my Baphomet on field, plus my Gazelle and Aluber in hand. On a new chain, Angler triggers to summon out 2 Nimble monsters from deck, and I stack my chain links as chain link 2 Chimera to draw 2 cards and pop a card, chain link 3 Gazelle to search me an illusion, and chain link 4 Baphomet to summon back Cornfield Codal. Resolving backwards, Codal gets summoned, I search for a copy of Codal from deck, plus I draw 2 and pop his Sprint. Overlaying his 2 monsters, C-Dubs makes Gigantic, which summons out his Blue. This would have been a perfect place to use Rinbrum's Grave Effect if I had not forgotten it. Blue adds Jet, which he summons, and he makes Onibimaru. Moving to the battle phase, Onibimaru beats over my Chimera, and in main phase 2 he uses its effect to banish Guardian Chimera. This way he plays around my Cornfield Codal. And to end off his turn, C-Dubs summons Lil Knight and banishes my Chimera Fusion from grave. On my turn I start off with Branded Opening, and he didn't really have a great place to use SP on my turn, so I just go for Dragoon and go for the Codal OTK line, securing game 1. Game 2 C-Dubs goes first, but an Ash on Gigantic stops his turn. He does however have 2 set cards, one of those being Different Dimension Ground. If you don't know, this is a normal trap that basically acts as a macrocosmos for monsters, but solely for that turn. He had chained this to my Branded Opening, so I decided to send Poly here and summon out Aluber, which gets me to my Branded Fusion. Under macro, there's nothing good to summon here really, so I go for Rinbrum. On resolution, I use Patchwork to deck thin for 2, and go for the battle phase where I swing over his Gigantic. In main phase 2, I normal summon Sword Knight, set a card, and pass. But C-Dubs just ends up scooping here. Good games to C-Dubs. Round 3, we're up against Stray, better known as Different Gaming on YouTube. We've played against him before, and he usually uploads locals feature matches on his channel. Go check him out when you get the chance. He won the die roll and went first, ending on a board of Appaloosa with 3 negates, Zealantis, Flamberge, Dragon, and IP Masquerena in the spell trap zone. Oh, and he also had Fire King Island in the field spell zone. This is a secret tool that will help us later. I start my turn by activating Branded Opening, discarding Gazelle and summoning a Luber. Dre decides to use one of his Appaloosa negates here, and on resolution, he summons out his IP with Flamberge. I go to my main phase and use Patchwork to add Polymerization and Edge Imp Chain, and I realize my win condition. My hand was kind of bad, but I could make Guardian Chimera. I'm even able to chain block my Chimera's effects to play around Appaloosa because I can use Edge Imp Chain as material. I can also use the Gazelle in my hand, that way I can chain block that with Edge Imp Chain as well and search for an illusion. So I go for this play, and in response to me activating Guardian Chimera, Dre chains IP, linking off 3 of his monsters and my Chimera for Underworld Goddess. The chain resolves, searching me a copy of Codal and Patchwork before drawing 2 and popping his Island. Island triggers on a new chain of course, but so does his Flamberge. Since Island is mandatory, all that happens with Flamberge is that it summons out the monsters and they immediately gets destroyed. This does allow him to summon out his Grunix, but one of the 2 cards I drew into was Imperm. From here, I can go for the Illusion Beast line, but I can't OTK since I already searched with Gazelle earlier in the turn. I'm still able to swing in for a ton of damage and leave him in a position where he has negated Promethean on field. When I pass back to Dre, he actually had a lot of ways to try to play through Cornfield and Mirror Sword Knight, and after getting through those 2 negates, he was able to banish my Illusion Beast with the Little Knight. However, since I left him on low life, all I had to do was bring back the Illusion Beast with the Performant Fusion Graveyard effect, and on my turn swing in for lethal. Game 2, Dre actually made me go first, and he had a couple of hand traps. He had Ash Blossom for my Branded Opening, and he Ghost Spelled my Chimera Fusion's Graveyard effect to add itself back, meaning I wouldn't have a way to Fusion Summon on his turn. This made it so I only ended on a board of Chimera and Mirror Sword Knight, with Chimera ripping a copy of Snake Eyes Ash out of his hand. When I pass over to him, I forget to use Mirror Sword Knight in the draw phase, and the first thing he does in main is normal summon Snake Eyes Ash. This would be my primary target to hit with Sword Knight's negate, but as it's on field, I can't do that. This misplay leads him to be able to play through my board, but luckily for me, he can't OTK me. So in the end phase, I use Chimera's Grave effect to bring back Big Wing Baphomet, which searches me Gazelle and Chimera Fusion. Knowing his only real interruption is Promethean and a potential Imperm, I feel safe to combo off knowing that Cornfield Codal could negate either of those things, leading me to take the match. Good games to Dre. Round 4, I'm up against Mitchell, who now appears in 3 of my videos in the past month as my last round opponent. He was on pure Snake Eyes and went first, setting up a board of Flamberge, Barone, Imperm, and IP Masquerena. My hand was okay, but not good enough into his board, so Mitchell ends up taking game 1. And the only thing I wanted going first in game 2 was to not brick, as that would probably be a very boring way to end the video. Yeah, the only thing I had really drawn into here was Different Dimension Ground, so I got destroyed pretty quickly. Mitchell could not OTK me thanks to DDG, but he still set up a board while I had pretty much nothing, so he took the match quickly. Now, my previous impression of this deck that I stated last episode was that the deck was fun, but ultimately probably would not see any tops at big tournaments, and while that might come true, I now hold a different opinion. I think this deck has a ton of potential to top. Deep Barrier isn't great in this format, and if you don't brick, it's incredibly grindy. The resource loop this deck provides is incredible, and with the Patchwork engine, it gets even stronger. The next day at Locals, I went 3-0 with this deck, and honestly, I love this build. I will be uploading a deck profile for it Monday, and this is the variant I intend on playing for a while. I will, however, be testing a no hand trap variant in a couple weeks, so look forward to that video. And make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel. I upload weekly on Fridays, and I'm trying to get to 1,000 subs this year, so your support would mean the world to me. And if you want to pick up a sick playmat like mine, head on over to grimoireaccessories.com and use code GOKI5 for 5% off at checkout. But with that, my name is Gokizemi, and I'll see you guys in the next one. See ya!